Commander Reed's hands gripped the command chair tightly as another explosion rocked the Alliance flagship. Through the massive view screen, he watched helplessly as 3 more Alliance warships disappeared in bright flashes of light. The Void Swarm had broken through their final defensive line. "Status report," he called out, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Officer Tom looked up from his console, his blue face pale with fear. "Sir, we've lost contact with the entire 3rd Fleet. The 5th Fleet reports massive casualties. The swarm, it's adapting to our weapons faster than ever before." Reed closed his eyes for a moment. The Galactic Alliance, with all its advanced technology and 12 species working together, was losing. They had tried everything: plasma cannons, quantum disruptors, even experimental reality-bending weapons. Nothing worked for long. The Void Swarm simply absorbed their attacks, learned from them, and came back stronger. "Sir," a young communication officer called out suddenly, "we're picking up a signal. It's very old, using primitive radio waves." Reed frowned. Nobody had used radio waves for communication in over a century. "Source: unknown, sir." But the officer paused, checking his readings again. "Sir, it's using Earth encoding patterns. Ancient Earth encoding patterns." The command center fell silent. Earth was a respected member of the Alliance now, but they were one of the younger species to join. Their technology had caught up quickly, but this signal, this was something else. "Put it through," Reed ordered. Static filled the command center speakers, then cleared into a repeating message. "This is the HSS Artemis, Earth Colony Ship Designation 001. We are experiencing navigation system failures. Request immediate assistance. Coordinates follow." Reed's eyes widened. Every child in the Alliance knew about the HSS Artemis. It was humanity's first attempt at interstellar colonization, lost 200 years ago. The ship had disappeared with 10,000 colonists in Cryo sleep, becoming a legendary tragedy. Another explosion shook the ship. The Void Swarm was getting closer. "Sir," Officer Tom spoke up, "I've traced the signal. The Artemis. It's in the dark sector." The dark sector, a region of space so remote that even the Alliance rarely ventured there, a place where the maps showed only empty space and stellar anomalies. Reed stood up, his mind racing. The Artemis had been lost for 2 centuries, yet its systems were still working, still broadcasting. How? And why now when all hope seemed lost? "Get me Alliance command," he ordered, "and prepare a rescue mission plan." "Sir," Tom protested, "the swarm is breaking through our last defenses. We can't spare any ships for a rescue mission." Reed turned to face his crew. In their eyes, he saw fear, exhaustion, and defeat. They had fought bravely, but the Void Swarm was unstoppable. Yet something about this signal, this ghost from humanity's past, stirred something in him. "Those colonists on the Artemis," he said slowly, "they're from a time when humans had just reached the stars. They solved problems differently back then. More creatively. Maybe," he paused, a desperate plan forming in his mind. "Maybe that's exactly what we need right now." The command center erupted in urgent activity as Reed issued his orders. They would split their forces. Most would continue fighting the swarm, buying time, while a small team would attempt to reach the Artemis. As Reed watched another Alliance ship fall to the swarm, he silently hoped he wasn't sending good people on a fool's mission. But they had tried everything else. Their most advanced weapons had failed. Their greatest strategies had crumbled. Perhaps it was time to look to the past for salvation. Little did Reed know, his desperate gamble would change the course of the war. Because sometimes, the oldest solutions are the best ones, and humanity's primitive past was about to become the Alliance's last hope for the future. Captain Marcus stood at the helm of the rescue vessel Starseeker, staring into the darkness of the dark sector. His small ship had managed to slip past the Void Swarm's advance by using old hyperspace routes that nobody had traveled in decades. Now they were approaching the source of the mysterious signal. "Any visual contact?" he asked his bridge crew. Officer Lisa adjusted her scanners. "Nothing yet, Captain, but the signal is getting stronger. Whatever's out there, we're getting close." The Star Seeker pushed forward through the empty space, its advanced engines humming quietly. The crew was tense. They had left their allies fighting a losing battle to chase what might be nothing more than an echo from the past. Suddenly, the ship's sensors began beeping urgently. "Large object ahead," Lisa called out. It's massive, sir." The Star Seeker's lights pierced the darkness, revealing something that made the entire bridge crew gasp. Floating silently in space was a ship unlike anything they had seen before. It was huge, built like the ancient sea vessels of Earth, with massive cylindrical sections that must have been meant for cargo or colonists. "The HS of Artemis," Marcus whispered. "The legendary lost colony ship of Earth, perfectly preserved in the cold of space." "Sir, I'm reading power signatures," the engineering officer reported. They're still active. After 200 years, that ship still has power." Marcus ordered a closer approach. As they circled the ancient vessel, they could see its name painted in fading letters along its hull. HSRT-Manias, Earth Colony Ship 001. The ship showed signs of its age. Micrometeorite impacts scared its surface, and some external panels had come loose, but it was largely intact. "Life signs?" Marcus asked hopefully. Lisa worked her console for a moment. "Sir, this is incredible. I'm reading thousands of cryopods. They're still functioning. The life support systems are maintaining minimal power, just enough to keep the colonists in suspended animation." Marcus couldn't believe it. 10,000 humans from Earth's past, preserved like insects in amber, floating through space for 2 centuries. He had to make a decision. "Prepare a boarding party," he ordered. "Full environmental suits. We need to check those cryopods." An hour later, Marcus led his team through the Artemis's dark corridors. Their suit lights illuminated walls covered in old-style computer interfaces and manual control panels. Everything was analog, mechanical, built to last rather than built to impress. They reached the main cryo storage chamber and stopped in awe. Row after row of cryopods stretched into the darkness, each containing a sleeping human from Earth's past. The pods were simple compared to modern technology. No quantum stabilizers or neural preservers, just basic frozen sleep. How did they survive? One of his team members wondered aloud. "This technology is so basic." Marcus smiled behind his helmet visor. Maybe that's exactly why they survived. No complex systems to fail, no advanced technology to break down. Just simple, reliable engineering. Their team's engineer checked the pod control systems. "Sir, these people, they're all still viable. We could wake them up." Marcus looked at the sleeping faces behind the frost-covered pod windows. These humans had launched into space when reaching the stars was still a dream. They had none of the genetic enhancements or neural upgrades that modern humans had. They were primitive by current standards. But as another message came in about Alliance forces falling to the Void Swarm, Marcus remembered Commander Reed's words about needing a different way of thinking. "Begin revival procedures on the command crew pods," he ordered. "Let's wake up Earth's lost children. The Alliance needs them, even if they don't know it yet." As the revival process began, Marcus watched the first pod's frost begin to clear. Soon, he would meet humans who had last seen Earth when it was still learning to reach for the stars. He hoped Commander Reed was right about them. Because right now, these relics from humanity's past might be the future's only hope. The first cryopod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cold vapor into the air. Technical Officer James was the first to wake, his eyes slowly opening to a world 200 years newer than the one he remembered. Around him, other pods were beginning their revival sequences. Captain Marcus watched as the ancient human sat up, moving carefully as his body remembered how to work. James looked around the room, taking in the sight of the Alliance rescue team in their advanced environmental suits. "Well," James said, his voice rough from centuries of silence, "I'm guessing we missed our exit." Marcus was surprised by how calm the man seemed. "You've been asleep for 200 years, he explained carefully, expecting shock or disbelief. James nodded, checking the basic medical readouts on his pod. The pod computers were designed to wake us if they detected rescue signals. Though I admit, I didn't expect to sleep quite this long. He looked at the alien captain with curiosity rather than fear. Humanity made some interesting friends while we were napping, I see. More pods were opening now. Security Chief Anna emerged from hers, immediately alert despite her long sleep. Unlike modern humans who relied on neural implants and genetic enhancements, these colonists had been chosen for their natural abilities and trained extensively for their mission. "Status report," Anna demanded, her military bearing evident as she stood up. "How many of our people are still viable?" "All pods are functioning," Marcus replied, impressed by their focus. "We've started reviving the first 100 colonists, mostly command crew and specialists." As more colonists woke up, Marcus noticed something unexpected. Instead of confusion or panic, they showed determination and curiosity. They checked on each other, organized themselves into their pre-assigned teams, and began assessing their situation with practiced efficiency. "You seem very prepared for this," Marcus observed. James smiled as he helped another colonist to their feet. "We were trained for anything. First interstellar colonization mission. They couldn't exactly tell us what to expect, so they trained us to handle whatever we might find." The ship's briefing room was quickly converted into a command center. Marcus explained the current situation, humanity's progress since their departure, the formation of the Alliance, and the threat of the Void Swarm. The colonists listened intently, asking sharp questions about the enemy's capabilities and behaviors. "Let me get this straight," Anna said, studying the tactical displays. "This swarm adapts to any weapon used against it. It learns and evolves." "Exactly," Marcus confirmed. "Our most advanced technology is useless now. The swarm just absorbs it and turns it against us." James was looking at the old computer terminals of the Artemis, then at the holographic displays the Alliance had set up. His eyes narrowed in thought. "You said the swarm adapts to advanced technology," he said slowly. "But what about primitive technology? Has it ever encountered something simple?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The colonists exchanged looks, their minds already working on ideas that no one in the Alliance had considered. "Our ship's systems are 2 centuries old," James continued. "Basic nuclear power, simple computer systems, manual controls. To your modern standards, we're primitive. But maybe," he smiled, "maybe that's exactly what we need to be." Anna was already moving. "Get me access to the Artemis's main computer. I want to see how our old systems compare to what the swarm has faced." Marcus watched in amazement as the ancient humans sprang into action. Where the Alliance saw outdated technology, they saw potential weapons. Where modern military minds saw only retreat, they saw opportunities for counterattack. As he sent his report back to Commander Reed, Marcus finally understood. These humans weren't just survivors from the past. They were a reminder of humanity's greatest strength. They didn't need advanced technology or genetic enhancements to solve problems. They just needed their minds, their determination, and their unique way of thinking outside the box. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to save the galaxy. James sat in the Artemis old control room, surrounded by screens showing data about the Void Swarm. He had been studying the enemy for hours, watching how it moved, how it fought, how it adapted. Beside him, Anna paced back and forth, her military mind working on the problem from a different angle. "Look at this," James said suddenly, pointing to one of the old monitors. "The way the swarm units communicate with each other, it reminds me of something." Captain Marcus leaned in closer. "What do you see?" "Computer viruses," James replied, his eyes lighting up. "The old ones we used to deal with back on Earth. The swarm, it's not just biological or mechanical. It's like a living computer virus." Anna stopped pacing. "That's why it adapts so quickly. It's not just learning. It's rewriting its own code on the fly, just like the evolving viruses we used to fight." Marcus looked confused. "But how does that help us? The swarm has defeated our best cyber weapons." James smiled, turning to the Artemis's main computer. "Your weapons are too advanced, too complex. But look at our old system here. It's simple, binary, basic code that barely knows how to talk to itself. To the swarm, it would be like..." He paused, searching for the right words. "Like trying to infect a stone tablet." The next few hours were a flurry of activity. James and his technical team dug deep into the Artemis's ancient systems, while Anna's security team worked on delivery methods. More colonists were awakened to help, each bringing their old-world knowledge to the problem. "Here's what we know," James explained to the gathered Alliance officers. "The swarm is like a super-advanced computer program. It expects every system it encounters to work on modern principles. But our old tech, it's so basic that the swarm won't know how to handle it." He pulled up a diagram on one of the old screens. "We're going to turn the Artemis's entire computer system into a weapon. A virus, but one so primitive that the swarm's defenses won't recognize it as a threat. It won't adapt because it won't understand what it's fighting." "That's insane," one Alliance officer said. "You want to fight the most advanced enemy we've ever faced with obsolete technology." Anna stepped forward. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. Your modern weapons are like using a laser to fight bacteria. We're suggesting we use soap instead." The plan took shape quickly. They would use the Artemis's nuclear reactors to power a massive burst of old-style computer code. The code itself would be written in the most basic programming language they could still make work. No quantum algorithms, no AI assistance, just pure, simple commands that even a computer from Earth's early space age could understand. "Think about it like this," James explained to Marcus. "The swarm is like a person who only speaks advanced languages. We're going to shout at it in caveman speak. It won't be able to translate fast enough to defend itself." As they worked, more reports came in from the front lines. The Alliance was losing ground everywhere. The swarm had adapted to their last defensive weapons and was pushing toward the core worlds. They were running out of time. "Will this really work?" Marcus asked, watching the humans prepare their strange weapon. James looked up from his work, his hands covered in grease from reconnecting old power cables. "Back in our time, we learned something important about technology. The more advanced it gets, the more ways it can fail. But simple things..." He patted the old computer console. "Simple things just work." Anna nodded, checking the power readings. "We're about to teach the swarm a lesson it never learned in all its evolution. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." As the Artemis's ancient reactors hummed to life, preparing to power their desperate gambit, James couldn't help but smile. They were about to fight the future with the past, and the enemy would never see it coming. Anna stood in the hangar bay of the Star Seeker, checking her old-style spacesuit one last time. Around her, her strike team was preparing for their mission. They had modified their suits with simple mechanical systems instead of the Alliance's advanced life support technology. No chances could be taken. Everything had to be basic enough that the swarm couldn't interfere with it. "Remember," she told her team, "we do this just like the old space walks back home. No fancy equipment, no neural links, just plain old radio communication and manual thrusters." James's voice crackled over the radio from the control room. "The virus is ready. We've loaded it onto data drives so old that my grandfather would have called them ancient." Captain Marcus watched the preparations with a mixture of worry and hope. The humans had rigged up a delivery system using parts from both the Artemis and the Star Seeker. It looked crude compared to Alliance technology, But that was exactly the point. "The nearest swarm cluster is 3 hours from here," Marcus said. "Are you sure about this?" Anna smiled behind her helmet visor. "In our time, we were just learning to walk in space. Sometimes the best way to win a fight isn't to be stronger. It's to be unpredictable." The mission launched with little ceremony. 3 small shuttles, stripped of their advanced systems and powered by simple chemical rockets, pushed away from the Starseeker. Anna led the first shuttle, guiding it with manual controls instead of the usual AI assistance. As they approached the edge of swarm territory, they saw their enemy for the first time. The swarm units looked like a cloud of metallic insects, each one shifting and changing as they watched. The sight was terrifying, but Anna kept her voice steady. "Look at them showing off," she said over the radio. "All that fancy transformation technology. Let's show them what basic engineering can do." The first swarm units noticed them quickly, but instead of the usual immediate attack, the enemy seemed confused. The shuttles were too primitive to register on their advanced sensors. The swarm units circled, trying to understand what they were seeing. "Now," Anna ordered. All 3 shuttles launched their payloads, simple capsules containing the virus on old storage devices. The capsules floated toward the swarm, looking harmless. Several swarm units moved to intercept them, probably expecting some kind of advanced weapon. Instead, they found something their complex systems couldn't understand. Computer code so basic it might as well have been written in stone. The virus began to spread through the swarm's network, causing chaos in its wake. "It's working," James shouted over the radio. "Their units are fighting each other. They can't adapt to something this simple." Anna watched in amazement as the swarm units began to malfunction. Some spun in circles, others crashed into each other. The virus was spreading through their network like a wave of confusion, turning their own adaptability against them. "Bring out the second wave," she ordered. More capsules launched, carrying different versions of the virus. The swarm, already confused by the first attack, had no defense against this new wave of primitive code. Their attempts to adapt only made things worse, creating conflicts in their programming that spread like wildfire. Back on the Starseeker, Marcus couldn't believe his eyes. They're actually retreating. The mighty swarm is running from computer code that's 2 centuries old. James grinned at his screens. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The swarm never learned to defend against simple attacks because it never thought it would need to. As Anna's team returned to the ship, the news was already spreading through the Alliance fleet. The humans' primitive solution had worked. The swarm could be beaten, not with advanced technology, but with the simple, reliable methods of humanity's past. "Send word to Commander Reed," Marcus ordered. "Tell him to wake up the rest of the colonists. We're going to need every one of these primitive humans and their old-fashioned ideas." The tide of war was about to turn, and it would turn on the most unlikely of weapons: humanity's technological past. The Alliance flagship's command center was busier than ever. Commander Reed watched in amazement as teams of newly awakened humans worked alongside Alliance engineers, teaching them how to build simple but effective weapons against the swarm. "It's like teaching a quantum physicist how to use a hammer," James said, showing an Alliance engineer how to program using basic computer code. Sometimes the simplest tools are the best ones. The news of their first success had spread quickly through the Alliance fleet. Ships were arriving from all sectors, their crews eager to learn the humans' methods. The Artemis had become a center of activity, its old-fashioned technology now the most valuable resource in the galaxy. "We've modified the virus to work with 10 different delivery systems," Anna reported to the gathered fleet commanders. "All of them use technology so basic that the swarm can't predict or counter it. We're calling it the Stone Age Protocol." Reports were coming in from all fronts. Wherever the humans' primitive virus had been deployed, the swarm was falling into chaos. Their advanced adaptive abilities had become their greatest weakness. They simply couldn't handle something so simple. "Look at this," one of the Alliance analysts said, pointing to a tactical display. "The swarm units aren't just failing. They're actually fighting each other. Their network is tearing itself apart. James nodded, watching the display. It's like introducing a common cold virus to an advanced AI. The swarm is so focused on defending against complex attacks that it has no immunity to basic ones. More colonists were being awakened every day. Each brought their own skills and ideas from humanity's past. Engineers who knew how to fix machines without computers. Pilots who could fly without AI assistance. Soldiers who understood the value of simple, reliable weapons. "Your people are remarkable," Captain Marcus said to Anna as they watched another successful deployment. "You've done in weeks what the Alliance couldn't do in years." Anna smiled. "We're not smarter or better. We just remember something that the galaxy seemed to have forgotten. Technology should serve us, not the other way around. Sometimes a wrench is better than a quantum manipulator." The Alliance was learning fast. They stripped their ships of unnecessary technology, replacing complex systems with simpler ones. Combat tactics changed from elaborate AI-driven strategies to basic maneuvers that the swarm couldn't predict. "We're getting reports from the outer sectors," an officer announced. "The swarm is retreating. They're actually falling back." Commander Reeves stood at his view screen, watching as the tactical map updated. Where once the swarm had seemed unstoppable, now there were gaps in their lines. Their perfect coordination was broken, their units confused and disorganized. "This is more than just a victory," Reed said to James. "Your people haven't just given us a weapon. You've taught us a valuable lesson." James looked up from his work. "What's that, Commander?" "That progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes you have to remember where you came from to know where you're going." The Artemis had become more than just a rescued colony ship. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that the most powerful solutions didn't always need to be the most complex ones. The humans from the past were changing the future, one simple idea at a time. "What happens when this is over?" Marcus asked Anna as they watched another team of colonists prepare for deployment. "What will your people do?" Anna looked at the mix of humans and aliens working together, sharing knowledge and ideas. "We'll do what humans have always done," she said. "We'll adapt, we'll learn, and we'll help build a better future, one that remembers the value of its past." As the Alliance fleet prepared for its final push against the weakened swarm, one thing had become clear to everyone. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their advanced technology or their military might. It was their ability to think differently, to find strength in simplicity, and to remember that sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones. 3 months after the awakening of the Artemis colonists, Commander Reed stood on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship. Beside him, James watched as the last known swarm cluster disappeared into deep space, running from the simple but effective weapons that had changed the course of the war. "They're actually gone," Reed said softly. "The greatest threat the Alliance has ever faced, defeated by technology from humanity's past." Through the massive window, they could see the fleet gathering. Ships of all sizes and designs, some still carrying the primitive weapons that the humans had helped create. Below them, a green and blue planet spun peacefully, one of many that had been saved from the swarm's advance. "The last of the colonists are being awakened," James reported. "All 10,000 survived. Some of them still can't believe how long we slept." Reed smiled. "And now they're waking up to a very different galaxy than the one they left behind." The doors slid open, and Anna entered with Captain Marcus. They were carrying old-style data tablets, filled with reports from across Alliance space. "The cleanup is going well," Anna said. "The swarm left behind a lot of damaged units, but they're harmless now. Some of our engineers are actually studying them, trying to understand where they came from." "Any answers?" Reed asked. Marcus shook his head. "Not yet, but we're approaching it differently now. Instead of using our most advanced technology, we're starting with the basics, learning from your example." The changes in the Alliance were visible everywhere. Ships now carried backup systems based on simple, reliable technology. crews trained to operate without full computer assistance. The lessons learned from the humans of the past had transformed the way the Alliance thought about progress. "I heard they're converting part of the Artemis into a museum," James said, "to remind everyone that sometimes the old ways are the best ways." "Not just a museum," Reed corrected him. "A school. We're calling it the Earth Heritage Academy, a place where the galaxy can learn from humanity's past." Through another window, they could see the Artemis itself, now docked at a massive space station. The old ship had been carefully preserved, its simple but effective systems still functioning after 2 centuries in space. It had become a symbol of hope and wisdom for the entire Alliance. "What about the rest of us?" Anna asked. "The colonists who were meant to start a new world." Reed turned to face her. "The Alliance Council has made an offer. Any colonist who wants to continue their original mission will be given all the support they need to establish their colony. But they've also offered citizenship to any who want to stay and help build this new future." James looked out at the stars. "A future that remembers its past," he said thoughtfully. "You know, when we left Earth, we thought we were going to teach humanity how to live on new worlds. Instead, we ended up teaching the galaxy how to think in old ways." The observation deck fell silent as they all considered this. Below them, ships were departing for distant sectors, carrying the story of how humanity's past had saved the galaxy's future. The tale of the sleeping humans who woke to defeat an unstoppable enemy would be told for generations. "Look," Marcus said suddenly, pointing to the planet below. The sun was rising over its horizon, painting the clouds in brilliant colors. "A new dawn." "For all of us," Anna agreed. "The humans who slept through time, and the Alliance that learned to value simplicity." As they watched the sunrise together, Reed thought about how close they had come to losing everything. The Alliance had reached for the stars with their advanced technology, but it took humans from the past to remind them of an essential truth. The path forward doesn't always mean leaving everything behind. Sometimes, to save the future, you have to remember where you came from. And now, thanks to the humans who slept through time, that was a lesson the galaxy would never forget.